everybody, so today what we're going to do real quick is we're going to actually put a horn button in my Mazda. Now most of us, when we put in an aftermarket steering wheel, we end up losing the horn button. Now I've tried a couple different methods to make it work. None of them really work good. I'm not happy with any of them. So I got like a $10 little switch off eBay. It's got an illuminated horn, you'll see it in the video. And we're just going to wire it up real quick and do away with the horn button in the steering wheel. It'll be there. It'll be pretty. It'll say energy on it or Mazda speed. Whatever you got going on, doesn't matter. But we're going to kill the horn button on the wheel and we're actually going to move it to the side so we'll have a secondary horn button like in an old dump truck or something. But we're going to try to make it in a nice, semi-decent way. So let's go out in the garage real quick and get to it. Okay. I already have an aftermarket wheel in here. So this is pretty simple for me to start this procedure. If you've got an airbag, you're going to have to go to your different manufacturer, whatever car you have, remove your airbag and get down to the main shaft nut, and that's what we're after. If you've already got an aftermarket wheel like me, I have an energy wheel, quick release, and short hub. We need to remove the wheel. We got to remove these 6 bolts along here, and underneath this right here is where we're going to have our nut. So let's go ahead and remove this real quick too. Okay, this is what most of you are going to see. When you pull the airbag out of the stock wheel, or if you've got an aftermarket like I do, this is what you're after, is this nut right here. And on these Proteges, it's a 21 millimeter, and you need the wheel on to keep from leverage. Now you don't want to get a punch and start hammering on this shaft. That's how you damage different things in the car. On the older trucks and stuff, that was okay, like in my pickup, my Isuzu, that's fine to beat on it as hard as you want with whatever size you want. You can Jeremy Clarkson that shaft until you're James May. It doesn't matter. But on these newer cars, there's a lot smaller tolerances. Things can be damaged. So I try not to hammer on anything like that, but it's not a big deal. On these, break the nut loose like that. I usually leave the nut on. I don't take it all the way off. I back it off till it's flush. And on things like this, that's why I have my spare wheel. Just start twisting on it. And there it is. We are now loose. Now you want to make sure that the wheel is straight so your horn ring is centered. So it'll cancel your, not your horn ring, your turn signal cancellation on there. And I'll show you where mine is. And mine's a little bit off center because of the way the hubs are. But you want to make sure this part right here with these 2 little posts that is straight. Otherwise your blinkers are not going to cancel themselves when you go around a corner. So now we got the wheel off, we'll go to the next step. So this is with the wheel off. Now on this car there are 3 bolts. There are 2 here and there's 1 in the back to remove the column, and then there's 2 here to remove the bezel around here. And I haven't decided exactly where I'm going to put my horn button yet. It's probably going to be somewhere right here where I can get to it easy with my right hand because it's usually free to shift. So I'm probably going to go right here somewhere, and I haven't exactly figured out where. If I have to go down here, I will. I can get it quick, or I can just slap up on it or somewhere. But when you're doing something like this, usually if you're going for the horn, it's for an emergency, and I want it where I can just mash at it and get it pretty easy. So we're going to take off the column trim and the bezel trim so I can see exactly where it is I want to go. Okay, so I got this stripped off. Another thing that we're going to have to remove on this car is my cluster. And the reason I'm removing that is because I need an illumination wire. I have a 5-pin switch I'm going to be using that will be illuminated at night, of course, in blue, obviously. This is the hot wire that I've actually got out of the wiring harness that goes to the horn, and almost all horns are grounded just to chassis. So this is hot wire. Ground can be anywhere that we choose, but I do need my illumination wires, and because of my gauges I have over here, I've already got the illumination wire off the back of the radio, and all of those wires run directly behind the cluster. So I'm going to pull that out. That's another 2 screws down here, and there's 1 right up here. Okay, I've soldered my hot lead for, well, that's less dramatic than I wanted, for my light onto the switch. So this is just going to be for my lights, my interior lights when I turn on the lights. So that's all that's for. And again, this is the hot wire, okay? The switch that I have is actually here. We can see this. It's just a little one off eBay, but I got one that wasn't the cheapest, even though I don't know how much of a difference it makes. It's a little 5-prong one. There's a lot of different variations of these. This is probably the most usual one that you'll get. You want the positive. This is for the lights to turn on, the little horn light when you have your outside lights on. This is the ground for that. This is the ground for the horn, and like I said, it's a ground anyway, so I actually soldered those together, so I only have one connection to make. And the actual lead that you want, you have a normally closed and a normally on option. So you want the one that is closed, so when you hit the button it opens a switch and the current runs through it, which on this switch is, I'm sorry, normally open. It's NO1. So the NO1 is what you want to actually wire to your hot lead. So you'll have the NO1 to here, your ground to here. So when you hit the button, that's what we're going to do. So I'm going to run a wire from my hot wire, and I've actually decided I'm going to drill a hole right here and stick it right there. It's quick and easy to get to. There's nothing in the way of it. So that's what we're going to go for. And like I said, this wire's for the on, and I'll just find a ground, and I'll probably put it just about anywhere. There's really almost unlimited options here. It could even go probably behind this screw. Yes, because that screw right there is in the chassis. So I can just put a little lead wire from here and run it up out of here and put a terminal end on it and put it right there. So this is actually quite an easy job, especially if you know how to solder, which is what I'm trying to do because I'm horrible at it and I'm trying to learn. So I'm going to punch a hole in here real quick, get this mounted up, and run a couple of wires, and we'll get it hooked up. Okay, so I have wired in my, if we can see it down here, or is my stock in the way? That doesn't help either, does it? Oh, you probably see that okay. So when we go on, we have illumination, and it's 11 o'clock at night, and I don't feel like honking the horn again, but it works. So I've got my hot wire for the illumination here. My ground wire is just going to the chassis here, and our hot wire for the actual horn is right here. Everything's been soldered together. I've taped it all up. Now I'm going to put a couple of wire tenders on, or zip tie everything out of the way so nothing chafes and rubs through. And basically all we have to do is reassembly. So despite my couple of oversights where I ran a wire over here and hated it, so I had to unsolder wires and run them back behind here, solder them back together, retape it, and changing the battery on this thing, this whole job takes less than an hour. It'll go even faster if you know what you're doing. You're not having to second guess everything, and you know where your wiring is. And okay, now that we've got everything put back on, we got our short hub back on, we've got our quick release back on, everything is up and ready to go. And unfortunately the horn button is dead. However, we have our new horn button that is right down here, that is nice and illuminated for us at night so we can see it. And it is a quick mash place for us. So if you're like me and you're usually down here Snapchatting women, or you're over here trying to street race little Honda Civics or whatever, you know, making sure you're not too cold, not too warm, or, you know, just listen to some Trap Queen, you got a real quick for the horn. And like I said earlier, there's no way in hell I'm honking the horn again. It's like 11:15 at night. I have a neighbor over there on the other side of that wall, and neighbors everywhere, and this thing has 6-speed horns on it, so it's not quiet. So we're going to call this another good job well done. Thanks for watching the video, everybody. Please like, comment, and subscribe right here for more Rage Fuel content. We'll see you next time.